Good afternoon and welcome. I'm Dr. Brown and I serve as DCR Social Equity Program as the Social Equity Program Director. Today's webinar is the second in a series of our SEED Grant Lunch and Learn webinars. It is our goal to assist qualified applicants in the completion of their SEED grant application and ultimately receiving financial grant assistance. First, I'd like to introduce the Social Equity team, who I'm proud to work with. They've been working tirelessly in partnership with Elevate Impact LA to administer and manage this program. I'd like to introduce Allison Toll, Catherine Smith-Ball, and Ethan Spalding. Next slide, please. Now, to just give you a little bit of background about our SEED grant program, the SEED grant program is utilizing funding from the 2019 and 2020 Cannabis Equity Grant for local jurisdictions, or better known as the CEG grant. This is to provide financial assistance to verified social equity individual applicants. In June of 2020, DCR selected Elevate Impact LA to administer the financial grant program. In April of 2021, the City of Los Angeles established the Social Equity Entrepreneur Development Grant, which is an acronym for SEED. To date, the City of LA has dedicated $6 million toward the SEED grant program. $5 million is available to SEED 1.0, and $1 million is available for SEED 2.0. Next slide. SEED 1.0 will utilize $5 million of the $6 million in SEG funding to provide grants of $25,000 each to Phase 3 Retail Round 1 Social Equity individual applicants. All Phase 3 Retail Round 1 applicants have been sent email notifying them that they are eligible for the $25,000 in financial grant assistance. Notifications were emailed to the addresses associated with your Excella account. All who registered for today's Lunch and Learn were also sent the 4 grant application assessment documents needed for the application, and we'll talk more about that later. Next slide, please. SEED 2.0 will utilize $1 million of the $6 million to provide grants up to $10,000 each to verified social equity applicants in 2 disbursements. Applicants who are eligible to receive $5,000 disbursements when the Department of Cannabis Regulation approves their pre-application for further processing. They can receive an additional $5,000 when they reach a milestone that deems them eligible for a notice of local compliance underway. Now, all applicants deemed eligible for further processing and who have received their notice of local compliance underway have also been sent emails notifying them that they are eligible for the 5K or the 10K in financial grant assistance. Notifications were emailed to the addresses associated with your Excella account. Next slide. SEED grant applicants must apply by August 18th. That's a very important date, folks. SEED grant funds not dispersed by 90 days prior to the end of the city's CEG contract with the state may be dispersed on a pro rata basis to eligible recipients who have applied by August 18th, 2021. Now, applicants who received funds under the SEED 1.0 are not eligible to receive monies under the 2.0, and conversely, applicants who receive funds under the 2.0 are not eligible for SEED 1.0. Next slide. And without further delay, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Paula Groves, who is the CEO of Elevate Impact LA and the project manager responsible for administering the SEED grant program. Ms. Groves will introduce her team and then will walk you through the SEED grant application step by step. You will have an opportunity to ask questions as she goes through the application. We will ask you to submit your questions through the question and answer icon at the bottom of the screen, and we will answer as many questions as time permits. All the questions and answers will be uploaded onto DCR's website. And for those who registered and received the 4 assessment documents, you can fill them out while Ms. Groves is walking you through each document. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Groves.
Thank you so much, Dr. Brown. It's so exciting to be a partner with the City of LA and giving access to capital and resources for the city's up and coming entrepreneurs. So thank you so much for your interest and participation in this program. Next slide, please. So I'd just like to introduce the folks on the team. These are the underwriters who you will interact with on a day-to-day basis. They are there to help you complete your application, as well as give you access to the funding. Our goal is to get the money to you as quickly as possible. So I highly, highly encourage you to ask questions and to get your application started as quickly as possible. It doesn't have to be perfect, and don't let that hold you up, because our team is there as a resource to help you complete the application as quickly as possible and to make sure that you've met all of the criteria associated with the application. The folks with me on the call today include the underwriters Laura Herrera, Tiffany McBride, Bruce Robinson, and we actually have a new underwriter that we're onboarding. So I apologize, Jovan, for not having your name on the slide. He actually just joined us very recently, and so he's a new member of our team. And then finally, another person you'll probably find yourself interacting with quite a lot is Stacy Brennan Gray, who is our customer relations officer and also heads up our database. So some of you on this call have probably already interacted with one, if not more than one, members of the Elevate team. So really, please utilize them to help you get your application done as quickly as possible. Next slide. So now I want to talk you through our 6-step grant disbursement process. Next slide. So step 1 is that you have to apply online. Paper applications will not be accepted. You simply go to our website, elevateimpactla.com, and you can start your application there. And one of the things that you will be required to provide is the ACH reference number. And this number can be found in your Excella account. And did you want to go ahead and play the video now, or? Perfect, thank you.
Our user-friendly online information and resource center. We have comprehensively redesigned our website to streamline, simplify, and make more accessible information related to licensing and the social equity program. All videos and resources on the website are for informational or guidance purposes only and may be updated from time to time as information becomes available. The information contained in these videos, forms, and other resources is subject to change without notice and does not replace or supersede the requirements contained in the Los Angeles Municipal Code or the rules and regulations. DCR encourages all applicants to conduct their own due diligence and seek legal or business advice if necessary.
In this video, I will demonstrate how to look up an Excella Citizen Access Reference Identification Number. To start, please navigate to the LADCR Excella portal, enter your username, password, click on the I'm Not a Robot CAPTCHA, and log into the system. From your home screen, please navigate your cursor to the Account Management section. On the Account Management screen, scroll down to Contact Information, where you will find your Excella Citizen Access Reference ID number located here. Please write down and save this number for future reference. Thank you for watching this video.
Wonderful, thank you. So I just want to say that the DCR website actually has 3 video tutorials on the SEED program page. These videos will show you how to navigate to elevateimpactla.com, the website on which you will fill out your application. There's a video that gives you an overview of the grant assessment documents, which we are going to talk about today. And then the videos also take you through the application process on a step-by-step basis. So please navigate to the DCR website and watch these videos, because we hope that they can help you complete your application as quickly as possible. Next slide, please. So on our website, elevateimpact.com, you will find information about how to apply. And this can be found if you click on the menu, how to apply, and you can see the information is provided here on this slide. And that's a picture of what you'll actually find on our website. Next slide, please. And this is a picture of what the application actually looks like. So when applying, you have the ability to either complete the application all at once, or you can save your work by clicking Save in Progress and come back to it later. If you want to save your work and return later, you will need to create a new user account by first clicking on the Login button. Next slide, please. Step 2, application review. Once a completed application has been received, our Elevate Impact staff will review the application for completeness. If nothing has been missed, then the applicant will receive an email requesting any missed information. We're also available by phone if the applicant has questions. Next slide, please. If an application is complete, it will then be assessed by the Elevate Impact Committee. The next few slides will walk you through the assessment process, but note that if an applicant does not submit a completed application, they will be coached by the Elevate Impact team on how to improve their application so that it can be resubmitted. In all of the other cities that we've worked in, a completed and eligible application has never been denied. Next slide, please. Now, we'd like to spend a bit of time in this seminar going through the grant assessment documents. The documents that you will be required to upload on the website that will be assessed by our team include a written budget narrative of how your funds will be used, a budget or line-by-line list of expenditures for the requested grant amount, a business executive summary of 3 to 5 pages, and finally, monthly expense projections for a 12-month period. These are the types of documents that are required by most traditional funding sources, such as banks or investors. Next slide, please. And this is a snapshot of what these documents look like, and you do have the ability to download templates from our website. And these also should have been sent to you as a part of your registration package, blank forms. Next slide, please. So let's start with the written budget narrative of how the funds will be used. Really, the written narrative really describes how you're going to use the money. It's kind of a qualitative written explanation of your budget. We're going to require that you upload a budget spreadsheet for how the funds will be used, but we also need a qualitative or verbal description of each of your budget categories. So let's take a look at an example. Our example assumes that the applicant will be spending money in 5 different areas: rent, licensing fees, legal assistance, regulatory compliance, and then finally capital improvements. Your categories might differ, but what we're seeking is an explanation of how you're going to spend the money. So for example, if you're spending money on rent and this budget shows that you're allocating $3,000 to rent, you would simply have to write, our monthly rent is $3,000 and we will use $3,000 of the grant money for rent. Next, let's say you're planning to use part of the funds for licensing fees. You would simply write that you are going to use some of the grant money for your state licensing fee, and you anticipate that the licensing fee amount will be $6,000. Now, let's say that you want help negotiating your partnership agreements, and you also want help developing your employee handbook. That might require that you go to a lawyer to get advice. So in your budget, you would say that you want to allocate $5,000 to legal fees. Next, we all know that business insurance is a core cost associated with being in business, regardless of the industry. So let's say you've done some research and discovered that in order to purchase a business general liability insurance policy, that's going to cost you $7,000. You would list that cost here. And finally, let's say you decide that you need to add some additional storage to your current location, and that your research shows that that's going to cost you $4,000. So you would simply explain that you anticipate adding additional storage, and it would be $4,000 in capital improvement costs. So this gives you an example of how to lay out a written explanation for how you plan to use the grant funds. Next slide, please. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, we can pause right now and take any questions that folks might have on the written narrative portion of the budget that we just went through on the previous slide. Do we have any questions?
Oh, I just have a question. Now, what you
Sure.
just went through in terms of examples, that would be for the $25,000, right?
Correct. The budget totals $25,000. So yes, that would be appropriate for the SEED 1.0 grant.
Mm. And I know that we have had some folks that didn't understand and they thought they had to have a budget for their entire business. The budget is only required to identify what they're going to spend on the $25,000. The budget is just for the grant amount,
Correct.
correct? Okay.
Correct. Now, I will say if you've already done a budget for your entire business and you need help trying to figure out what sections you want to allocate to the grant, please work with our underwriters. They can help you make decisions about what you want to put on your grant budget versus your overall budget. We can help you with that.
I also want to just remind all the attendees today that if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A feature on Zoom, and we will answer your questions in that chat or we'll answer them live. Okay, so we have a few questions, Paula. So the first question is, will the 25K be dispersed all at once?
Yes, the $25,000 will be dispersed all at once.
Okay, we have another question. It sort of ties into what Dr. Brown just asked. She just asked, what if we just think we can get the 5K for the budget narrative?
So that means you would qualify for SEED 2.0, and the SEED 2.0 grant comes in $5,000 increments. So you would apply for SEED 2.0 and your budget would simply have to total $5,000 instead of $25,000.
Okay, I don't see any more questions, so I think we can move on to the next section.
Perfect. So the next thing we want to walk through is the budget. And what I want people to really try to understand, these documents are really tools to help you manage your business, and they all kind of work together interactively. So you'll notice that on this slide, that it totals $25,000. And this is basically an Excel spreadsheet. And as you can see, based on the written narrative, the budget is simply a tabulation of all of the different categories that we discussed previously. So here, we've entered that rent is $3,000, licensing fees are $6,000, legal assistance is $5,000, regulatory compliance, which in this example is the estimated insurance cost, total $7,000, and finally, capital improvements to add a storage unit is $4,000. When you add all of these costs together, your total budget equals $25,000, which is the amount that is required for the SEED 1.0 grant. What's most important about your budget is that the total budget be equal to the grant amount that you're applying for. So just as I was saying previously in response to an earlier question, if you're applying for a $5,000 grant, we would expect these budget categories to add up to a total budget amount of $5,000. Next slide, please. So now we'll pause to see if any more questions have come up regarding the quantitative budget, i.e. the Excel spreadsheet and the Google Sheet, and also how it interacts with the written explanation for each of those categories. As you can see, the written explanation just explains the tabulations that you made in the Excel spreadsheet.
Okay, Paula, we do have a question. It says, can I do a retroactive budget? Can I add some expenses that I already incurred to my budget, or is it only for future expenses?
Right now, to date, we are only allowing future expenses. I can certainly take that question under advisement with the city of LA and DCR, but right now it's only allowed for future expenses.
I'll give it a second for
Sure.
questions. Okay, we do have another question. It asks, do we need to show invoices to justify the expenses?
Well, that will be something we talk about at the very end. The state requires us to report on how entrepreneurs actually spent the grant money. And as a way of tracking those expenses, we will require that people keep track of their receipts and upload them after they have received grant funds so that we can report that information back to the state. So yes, we will require that you upload receipts as evidence of how you spent the grant money.
Okay, we have a general seed question. They're asking if you're phase 2, you're eligible for the $10,000, correct?
Dr. Brown, I'm going to defer to you on this question, but it's my understanding, well, I'll defer to Dr. Brown.
If you've received your notice of local compliance underway, then yes, you will be eligible for the 10K. Paula?
I was waiting to see if there were any more questions, Ethan.
Oh.
Should we move to
I
the
think,
next?
we can go ahead and move on, and then we'll take any questions we receive in the next section.
Okay, perfect. Great. Now, the next document that you are required to upload is the monthly expense projections. So really what we're trying to introduce with this particular spreadsheet is the concept of time. Not all expenses occur in exactly the same time period. So what this allows you to do is determine when you're going to actually spend the grant money and in which month. So the monthly expense projection is a document that allows you to upload an Excel spreadsheet or a Google Sheet format. One of the most critical aspects of running a business is making sure that you do not run out of cash. So one of the best ways to ensure that you don't run out of cash is by having an understanding of how much you need to spend, not all at once, but also over time. So what we like for people to do is to create a monthly expense projection using our template. This document gives you the opportunity to lay out the budget in a time-sensitive manner. So for example, if you're applying for $25,000 in grant funds and you're spending $3,000 in rent, do you want to spend that rent money in month 1, month 2, or month 3? So you would simply enter the month of the rent in the column, you would enter the amount of the rent in the column of the month that you want to pay that rent. So next, let's assume that you will pay $6,000 of grant funds to pay for your state licensing fees, but perhaps your state licensing fee isn't due until month 6. So you would simply take that $6,000 and you would enter that amount in the month 6 column. Continuing with this illustration, let's say you are buying general liability insurance for $7,000, but you actually just paid that bill last month. And in our example, it's an annual policy. So you probably will not need to spend that $7,000 until month 12. And finally, in our illustration of the monthly expense projection, let's look at the capital improvements category. In our example, you wanted to create a new storage unit for your business. If you actually have to build the storage unit in your business, and you first have to work with an architect to design the storage and the shelving plans, you might actually end up spending months 1 and 2 designing the space, but you don't have to spend the money for the unit until month 3. Why? Because months 1 and 2 were the design phase. Using this example, you would put the storage unit costs of $4,000 in the month 3 column. The last step of projecting your monthly expenses to add all of your expenses for each category or row across from month 1 to month 12, and then sum that total in the last column, column Q, labeled total for year one. Add all of your expenses in column Q going down and enter the sum of column Q expenses on the total expenses row in the cell column Q. If you are applying for a $25,000 grant, your total expenses in column Q should be $25,000. Okay, great. Next slide, please. Hopefully you're getting a feel for how the monthly budget, the monthly expense the annual budget, the monthly expense projections interact together, as well as the budget narrative, which is an explanation not only of the type of expense, but the amount of expense and maybe even the timing of the expense. So those three documents should really work together interactively to give you a holistic vision of how your expenses are going to lay out in the first year after you receive the grant funding. Questions?
Yeah, so we have a question that asks, so when the receipts are required, what if expenses are different from your initial application submittal?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. You know, oh, I thought I heard something. Yes, that's an excellent
Yes,
question.
hello.
Yes, that's an excellent question because life happens. Sometimes expenses are more than what you projected. Sometimes expenses are less than what you projected. So what we want to do is an excellent tool for managing your business is to do a budget versus actual comparison. So you can see where you overspent and where you underspent. The thing that you have to be careful of, though, is you can only spend grant funding on eligible expenses. And we have a slide that's going to talk to you about what those eligible expenses are in just a moment. But obviously life happens, things change. And so if you find yourself spending on categories different from what you projected that you would, we just need an explanation as to why they differed. And we would have to upload the receipts on what you actually spent the money on.
Yeah, there's sort of a follow-up question to that. They're asking, can they go in a completely different direction? Let's say they no longer need storage, but now they need parking redone. Can they change that, or is it set in stone from their application submittal?
No, it's not set in stone because obviously, as I was saying a few moments ago, life happens and things changes, but we will require an explanation as to why the change happened. And you need to make sure that whatever you do spend the money on is a legitimate business expense. And we'll talk to you about what those eligible use of proceeds are in just a moment.
Okay, I think we can move on.
Great. So the fourth and final, I should say, document that we require you to upload is your business executive summary. This is basically a shortened version of your business plan. We just want to understand more about the type of business you're running, how you anticipate acquiring customers, what type of product you're developing, and how you're going to market your services. We expect this document to only be 3 to 5 pages. All of the questions that are outlined in this business executive summary that we're showing on the screen may not necessarily apply to your business, but we do want you to describe your business to the best of your ability. So let's walk through this document for a few more details. I'll just wait until the questions are on the screen and then I'll keep going. Perfect. Thank you, Ethan. Section 1, the overview section is where you enter the sort of snapshot information about the company. This includes your company name, your website, your company description in 50 words or less. And if you have a slogan or a tagline, this would be a great place to enter that information. The next section are the product questions. These are specifically designed to help you describe the type of product that you're bringing to market. We want you to explain to us what your product or service is. Sometimes it helps if you write down the top features of your product and the benefits of those products and services. And then you might even go as far as to tell us how much money you will require to set up and develop your product. And those numbers can be numbers that would be used in your budget. The next section is the competition questions. We all know that being in the cannabis industry is a very, very competitive marketplace. So we just want to understand if you're aware of who your competition is, who your top three competitors are, but most important, how are you unique? How are you going to be different than your competition? How are you going to be better than they are? The next section is the marketing and sales questions. So once you've developed your product, a critical question that all businesses have to ask and answer is how are you actually going to get the product in the hands of your customers? What sort of sales techniques are you going to use? The next section addresses the staff. A successful business often requires a team. We'd like to understand who's on your team, including your partners and consultants. If having a staff will cost you money or working with a consultant will cost you money, you have an opportunity to put those numbers in your budget and explain who those individuals are in your business executive summary. Next is the infrastructure section. These are basically the physical attributes of your business that you intend to spend money on. So for example, if you have to spend money on construction to bring your facility in compliance, or maybe you might have to purchase some sort of equipment. So whether it's a computer equipment, or it might even be packaging equipment. So all these sort of physical attributes is something that we would like to see you explain in the infrastructure section. Other examples include security systems, phones, and leases. Next section, please. The next section includes the compliance questions. We all know that the cannabis industry is highly regulated, and there are costs associated with making sure that you stay in compliance. So one question might be, what type of cannabis business are you actually operating? What sort of license and permits would you need in order to operate that business? Are you planning to provide health insurance to your employees as a part of a labor or peace agreement? Do you need to purchase general liability insurance? All of those questions would be addressed in this section, the compliance section. Scrolling down, finally, we all know that being in business requires that you stay in action. So we'd like for you to upload a business plan. This business plan describes what you need to do next in order to be successful, and also help you lay out the milestones that you need to launch a long-term and sustainable businesses. So in this section, we would like for you to list out what you think the milestones are for yourself. These milestones might include secure funding, create design plans, build out your space, purchase furniture, or develop a logo. You have the opportunity to list all of your action items in this section. And this is the section we've labeled Action Plan Questions. Next slide, please. Great, so now we'll take a pause and see if you thought of any more questions about the business plan or maybe about the budget or any other questions about the program. We really want this to be interactive and we're hoping to hear from you. So please feel free to ask your questions.
Yeah, just as a reminder, put the questions in the Q&A feature and they will either be answered in there or I will read them aloud and have them answered live. So we do have a question, Paula, about the written narrative. They're asking, will we like answers to each section and subsection below the header or written in narrative prose?
Really, whatever's going to be fastest for you and get it done quickly. We're not looking for a PhD thesis by any stretch of the imagination. And in fact, if you already have a business plan, you can upload that. You don't have to change your business plan to fit our template. We really are giving you this template as a way to think about it if you don't already have a business plan. Now, I will say that we do want the business questions that you answer or the business plan that you upload to really be customized for your business. Sometimes people have submitted generic documents that really could apply to any industry and don't really speak specifically to what they're trying to do. So we really are encouraging you to think hard about the business that you want to launch and how to make it successful and use that as a guide to answering these questions or supplying a customized business plan. But to answer your question, we'll take bullet points. It doesn't necessarily have to be, prose, as long as we understand the nature of what you're going to be doing.
Okay, looks like we can move on.
Perfect. So the next thing I'd like to talk to you about is once you've uploaded all 4 documents, we basically utilize what we call our grant assessment checklist. So once we receive your documents, this is the checklist that allows us to make sure that your documents are complete. Sometimes people upload, blank pieces of paper and they don't even realize it. And so we just want to make sure that your documents are complete and they address they answer the questions that we've asked. So we use this checklist just to go take us through that process. Next slide, please. So once you've uploaded a completed application and your documents have been reviewed and they meet the criteria that we've just described, then your application will be reviewed by the Elevate Impact Grant Committee. If the applicant passes the assessment process, an email is sent to the applicant saying that they've passed and they have now become an approved applicant. Again, if you do not pass the first time, the entrepreneur will be coached on how to improve so that they can reapply. Next slide, please. Then we have what we refer to as our virtual signing process. So once you've been approved, a grant agreement is created specifically for the applicant, and the Elevate Impact staff will virtually meet with the applicant to review the documents, address any question, and also verify the applicant's identity. Tiffany McBride is going to talk you through this process in a little more detail in just a few moments. The grant agreement will ask the applicants to confirm that they understand the approved use of funds and also to supply a non-binding budget outlining those expenses. After the approved applicant has reviewed and e-signed the documents, the City of LA will then electronically sign the documents. Next slide, please. Step 5 is the grant disbursement process. Once all signatures have been gathered, the applicant will create an account at Elevate Impact Funds where they will upload details for how they will receive the grant funding through ACH. Tiffany will talk to you a little bit more about how to establish your account in just a few minutes. Next slide, please. This slide shows you the approved uses of funds. So as someone was asking earlier, if your actual expenditures doesn't match your projected budget, that's fine. We just need an explanation as to why they're different. And these are the categories for which you can use grant funding for: rent, lease, equipment, local, state application licensing and regulatory fees, legal assistance, regulatory compliance, including taxes, testing of cannabis, furniture, state licensing, furniture and equipment, capital improvements, workforce training, and retention. So those are the approved uses of funds. Next slide, please. What you cannot use money on is unlicensed cannabis businesses, non-cannabis businesses that serve the cannabis industry. Some people refer to those as ancillary businesses. You cannot buy inventory with these grant funding. And also you can't spend money on personal expenses, such as the acquisition of personal property like cars or homes. Also, you can't relend or invest the grant funds, and you can't engage in prohibited operations. Next slide, please. So we actually talked about this a little bit earlier, but we have step 6 really involves the post-grant data tracking. The California Equity Grant requires that we report on how entrepreneurs have spent their grant money. Therefore, grant recipients will be required to upload their receipts as evidence of grant expenditures. This is also an important coaching moment for the entrepreneurs, as this will allow the Elevate Impact team to review the actual expenditures versus the budgeted items, examine those discrepancies, and then work on what can be done to improve the management of the entrepreneur's business based on this actual data. Next slide, please. Great. Now I'd like to turn it over to Tiffany, who's going to talk to you in more detail about the legal process associated with getting your grant funds and also the grant distribution process. Tiffany?
Thanks, Paula. All right, there are 6 steps to the disbursement. The first step is the grant approval email, which you will be receiving. Number 2 is the legal document review. Step 3, document signing. Step 4, video identity verification. Step 5, establishing your account to receive funds on the elevateimpactfunds.com website. And step 6, the grant funds disbursement. The grant approval email. Approved applicants will receive legal documents via email. You will have the opportunity to review these documents with the Elevate Impact staff. Approved applicants will then sign and return the documents to Elevate Impact. Next slide. And step 2, the legal document review. During our legal document review, we will go over 4 documents: the SEED grant agreement, number 2, the document review consultation form, number 3, the W-9, and number 4, attachment A, which are standard provisions to LA contracts, and no signature is required. And we're going to go over the grant agreement right now. And the grant agreement will be between the grantee and the city of Los Angeles. It'll list the grantee's name with all your numbers and your record that were located in your file. Please scroll down a little bit. Right there, and the grant amount. The grant amount will be listed there. Scroll down a little bit. And the use of funds, number 3, what we already talked about. The use of funds is for the licensed commercial cannabis business, and we went over what it's for and what those approved costs are: rent, leases, local and state application fees, licensing, regulatory fees, legal fees, the like. Scroll down, please, to defaults. Right here. Failure to comply with the terms of this agreement, specifically using the money for approved purposes, can result in the termination of this agreement, a revocation of your cannabis license or local authorization for a state license, demand of immediate reimbursement of any funds that you've been given, equitable relief, barring the grantee from future funding by the city, or pursuit of other legal remedies available in law and equity. And we could scroll down to the grantee's information. So this is important. Take a look at this address because you will be inputting it in the W-9. Your name, address, phone, and email will be listed here. The address that is listed here and your name as listed here is what you will be putting in the W-9. You can scroll down. I think that might be the end of all the important stuff in this document. And you're going to sign in the name of where your name is, where it says grantee. And the city deputy city attorney will also be signing, but we'll handle that for you. And that's it. Next document. The next document is the W-9. As I stated earlier, make sure that you put your name in number 1, exactly how it looks on the grant agreement. The address in the grant agreement should be inserted in number 5, along with the city and state that is also listed in the grant agreement, and the zip code. For part number 1, make sure to put in your social security number. Grants are given to individuals, not businesses. So make sure you put in your social security number, not an EIN. And scroll down a little bit to the signature and date. And don't forget to sign and date the W-9. And this is because the grants are taxable and you will be receiving tax documents from the city of LA. Next document. The document review consultation acknowledgement. This form is very important. When we're doing the legal review, you're going to accept that you accepted the review and that you received a consultation, or you can decline the review. If you accept the review, put in your name or accept decline, or put it down there where decline is, scroll down a little bit. Then you're going to sign your name, insert your name by printing it, and date it. You have to get this document to us as soon as possible. We can't move forward with the distribution of funds or even signing the documents or getting you your credentials for the Elevate Impact Funds site until we receive this document. So as soon as you're done with the legal review, sign it and return it to your underwriter. If you choose to decline the consultation, sign it and return it to your underwriter so that we can move forward in the funding process. And the last document are standard provisions for the City of Los Angeles contracts, and we will go over those in more detail during our legal review. That's it for that one. Great, so that is the legal document review process that you will be going through with your underwriter. Next slide, please. Step 3 is document signing. We use DocuSign, which is an electronic platform which allows you to e-sign the documents remotely. You have received your documents via email by this time via the grant approval email. You can sign and email them back to Elevate, or you can request DocuSign. Just let us know which one you prefer. The documents, after you sign them, then go to city officials who will then e-sign the documents via DocuSign. Step 4 is the video identity verification. Elevate will hold a video call with approved applicants to verify their identity. This step is required to get your password to set up an Elevate Impact Funds account. The verification steps include 1, holding up your ID and matching it to the underwriting file. And number 2, holding up your bank statement and matching it to the bank statement that we have in your underwriter file. Step 5 is establishing your Elevate Funds account. First, we went over this, completing the video call to verify your identity. Check, that's out the way. Next, you will receive an Elevate Impact Funds account credential, including your username and password, so that you can establish an account to receive grant funds. You'll need an electronic version of your driver's license and a bank statement or voided check, which have your checking account number and routing number, and have those ready to be uploaded to the Elevate Impact Fund site when establishing your account to receive funds. And you'll receive an email with the Elevate Impact username and password for your credentials, and you enter them here. Next slide. Next, you're going to enter your contact information. Verify your identity by entering contact information that is listed in your grant agreement, your name, address, and email. Next slide, please. Next, you're going to enter your banking information. Your banking information is provided on your bank statement or your check. And your banking information that's needed is a routing number and your bank account number, which can be found on a check or online on your statements. Next, after your account has been, your account information has been input, we're going to confirm the approved applicant's bank account is enabled to receive grant funds. The approved applicant will receive micro deposits to confirm the account has been established. The applicant should let their underwriter know when they have received the micro deposits and the amount of the micro deposits. Now, please note that the deposits are not instantaneous, but may take as much as 2 business days to hit your account. The underwriter will then let the program manager know the micro deposits have been received by the approved applicant. Next slide. Step 6 is the actual funds disbursement. So the grant agreement is signed by you and the city. Your account has been verified, and the last step is the grant funds are dispersed to your account. And does anybody have any questions about the closing legal review process or any of the documentation?
Yeah, we're gonna open up this section to questions. There's also some questions from previous section for you, Paula. So I'll just go ahead and get started. So there's a question about the budget. They're asking, since the budget is for expenses, when should they assume month one is? They want to know if they should include month one after they've applied or month one after you've received the funds, because they may have different expenses that arise depending on, when they receive the funds.
Yeah, I would say month one would be after you've received the grant funding. So, I would say, what we're projecting is once you've uploaded a completed application, it would take somewhere approximately 4 weeks to get through all of the steps that Tiffany explained. And so you should plan to receive grant funds in your account about 4 weeks after you've uploaded a completed application. So month one should be probably 1 month after you've uploaded your application.
Okay, we have another question. Can the grantee be the entity, such as a California LLC, associated with the application record number that will ultimately hold the cannabis retail license?
Unfortunately, the City of LA is only allowed to disperse grant funding to individuals. So no, the grantee cannot be an entity. It has to be a social equity, verified social equity individual.
All right, we have a question about the account to receive the deposit. So they're asking, does it have to be a personal account?
Well, the name on the account has to be the name on the grant agreement. So if the grantee is an individual, by default, the account that the money is going to be an individual account. Are you guys still there?
Yeah, we're getting some
Okay.
questions. And give me a
Perfect.
second.
I thought I had dropped off.
Okay, another question is, are the monthly expense projections just for expenses paid for by the grant or for expenses overall?
What we need you to upload is monthly expense projections for the grant. However, I highly encourage you to do monthly expense projections for your entire business. It's just a real good guideline to help you project your cash needs so that you don't run out of cash. But what we require is just for grant only.
All right, we have another question. You sort of touched on it earlier, but they asked, what is the time frame from the application to the date that they would receive a disbursement?
Once you have uploaded a completed application, it should take about 4 weeks.
Ethan, do you want to read question 18?
Sure, yeah. So they asked, will there be a recording of this webinar? Yes. This webinar, along with all previously recorded webinars, are saved to our website, cannabis.lacity.org. If you go to the Social Equity Program page, under Program Benefit and Resources, you'll see the SEED Grant Program. And this is where we have all the information concerning the SEED Grant Program, including these recordings of the webinars, the tutorials, a link to the Elevate Impact LA website where you'll apply, and any other information that you may need. Okay, someone is asking, if they have 2 applications, can they apply twice?
Well, remember, the grant money goes to the social equity individual, right? So if you only have one name, I'm assuming, so therefore only one person will be the recipient of the grant. So even if you have 2 applications uploaded to our system, we would, go through our verification process and consolidate those 2 applications for the one individual.
Okay. They say another question is how can they allocate the full 25K towards company expenses when the individual will owe taxes on the grant amount?
Well, no, that's probably effective business planning. You can certainly allocate a part of your budget or set aside a part of your budget to pay taxes. The thing that we can't predict right now is, what your tax liability is going to be. But if you wanted to allocate a portion of your budget to pay a portion of your taxes, that's perfectly fine.
And I just want to encourage everyone, if you have questions, please answer them in the Q&A section, and we'll either ask them and answer them live, or we'll answer them directly in the Q&A. We have another question. So are there any more detailed examples for what successful applications look like aside from the templates provided?
We haven't developed any further examples. I guess that's something that we could work on. Sure, we don't have any available right now, but we can certainly put that on the to-do list.
Okay, one question. Sorry about that. One question is, can you use the grant to make a cannabis house brand?
To create a brand, I guess I would have to have one of our underwriters work with you one-on-one, but you can certainly use you can certainly use the grant funding for marketing. And some of the sub costs associated with marketing are things like logo design, what you want the outside of your package to look like, what your brand colors are going to be. So those types of marketing expenses are typical when starting a new business. It's called your brand identity. So without knowing any further details, you can certainly use part of the budget for creating a brand. Yes.
Okay, we have another question. How should an individual transfer grant funds to the company to spend on expenses related to the business? A loan, an additional capital contribution, or what would you recommend?
I think that I would have to speak with you one-on-one offline. We're not really tax consultants. So I would encourage you to talk with your tax attorney or your legal representative to figure out the right way to do that for your business.
Just a reminder to please put your questions in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen so we can get to your specific questions.
Okay, someone asked, is a grantee recipient information released? Or is there a network of correspondence among grantees available for support?
I would have to defer to Dr. Brown to answer the question. Do you guys have a formal networking association amongst the social equity entrepreneurs in the city of LA?
Well, that's interesting. You know, there's professional organizations and so forth. I mean, all of the verified social equity applicants, there's a list that you can find online that lists everybody who's involved in the program. So yes, there is it's public record. If people want to find, you know, folks, it's online and it's on our website. So you can go to cannabis.lacity.org and you can find who is all the face review Round 1 folks. And I do think that we have, I'm not sure if the whole list of 1,600 is on our website. I can find that out. I'm not sure if it's on our website.
Only at this point, only the 200 phase 3 retail round 1 applicants
that's what I
are
thought. Mhm.
on our website. Just also want to note that we are keeping grant recipient information private at this time to protect you and your privacy. But it sounds like there might be some demand for grant recipients to work together. So we'll definitely take that suggestion. Thank you.
And I think, you know, there's an opportunity to create some sort of informal networking group, not just amongst grantees, right, but amongst social equity applicants. I've seen that happen in other cities. So there's an opportunity to develop some sort of networking amongst social equity applicants. So yes, Allison, I agree. That's something that we can definitely explore.
And again, just a reminder to please type your questions into the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. We do have quite a few members from the team from Elevate Impact LA who are here to help you with your application.
And I wanted to send out a reminder that all of the services that Elevate Impact provides are free of charge. So we really encourage people to reach out and apply, and their underwriters will work with you to get your application approved. So don't spend money if you don't have to on a consultant that's charging thousands of dollars when you have this very capable group of professionals who are here to help you free of charge. Are there any more questions? Ethan, any more new questions?
There are questions in the chat. Have we addressed all of those questions?
Yes, we have
Yes.
answered these questions already live.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I was just trying to make sure I was covering everything.
We do have a new question asking where they can find the list of all the social equity applicants on the website. Currently, that list is not on the website, and The question also says there's no link for the Acela portal. Where can you find that on the site?
Hi, Darwin. I will type the link directly to you in the chat to find the Acela portal.
Paula, I don't know if you feel comfortable answering this. You might want to be able to just guide them a little bit. How should an individual transfer grant funds to the company to spend on expenses related to the commercial cannabis business? A loan and additional capital contribution. What's your thought on that, Paula?
You know, I really would have to defer to, I would ask them to talk with their tax accountant or
Yeah.
their lawyer, because, you know, so much is dependent upon the the business structure that they have in place. And, or, because the whole goal is to really try to minimize taxes. And so that's highly dependent upon the business structure that they're utilizing.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Mr. Suffolk, I hope that helps.
Okay, this is going to be the last call for more questions. Please type your questions in the Q&A feature and we'll answer them live right now or give you an answer in the chat.
Ethan, this has been asked before, but I see this a similar question. Is the monthly expense projections just for expenses paid or by the grant? Paula, I know you want to answer that.
Yes, what we require that you upload to our website is the monthly expense projections for the grant amount. However, we do encourage you to do a full monthly financial projection for your business, because the goal is to really not run out of cash. And if you can see how your expenses lay out over time versus the revenue that you're bringing into the business, that can help you better predict what your cash needs are going to be over time. But to answer the question precisely, we only require the monthly financial projections for the grant amount.
I see we do have an additional question about when banking may be available to cannabis businesses. Unfortunately, I don't think anyone on this call kind of knows. A lot of banks are still shying away because it's still federally illegal. So there are certain institutions who are willing to go through the extra regulatory hurdles to bank with cannabis businesses, but unfortunately, it's not enough. We don't really have a timeline on when that happens. Hopefully, once cannabis is legalized federally, then the banks will follow suit as well.
And to add on to that, because of the situation with, the federal government, that was one of the motivations for DCR to make sure that the funds were for the individual applicant and not in the name of the business, because of those issues that Ethan just discussed.
I also want to remind everyone that after you've applied for the grant, you can always speak with your analyst if you have any additional questions specific to your situation.
Okay, last call for questions, folks.
Okay, so we have one last question. When do we get assigned an analyst?
I think they're talking about a licensing analyst.
I think they mean you guys for.
That would be
Well,
an
you-
underwriter. They're considered
Sure.
underwriters.
Okay, so yes, you get assigned an underwriter once you've uploaded a completed application to our website.
And then we have another question asking, how do you get in contact with you, Paula?
You're welcome to email me at my email address, which is my name, paula@elevateimpactla.com.
Looks like he clarified his question. He did mean a licensing analyst. It's essentially the same thing. Once you submit an application to the department, then you will be assigned a licensing analyst who will be able to walk you through the application process.
And just as a reminder, this is not a licensing webinar. This is specifically for the SEED program. There's tons of information on our website at cannabis.lacity.org under the licensing tab, where you can find out more information about licensing. So we really encourage you to check out those features. It's last call for SEED related questions. We do not have any further SEED questions, so that concludes our webinar for today. Thank you to everyone for attending, and please remember to please go to our website, cannabis.lacity.org, and please also check out elevateimpactla.com. Both of those websites have tons of information and additional resources to help you in your SEED grant application. Good luck to you and hope to hear from you all soon. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
I want to thank Ms. Groves and your team for a robust and informative workshop. I want to thank Mr. Spalding for handling all the questions and answering and handling the question and answer segment. And last but not least, I want to thank Allison Toll for hosting the event and overseeing all of the marketing and operational items that were necessary for today's webinar. This is the second in a series of our Lunch and Learns. Our next workshop webinar will be held on July 1st from 12 to 1:30. DCR will send out notices regarding the date and times for the next webinar. This information can also be accessed through our DCR website, again at cannabis.lacity.org. Go to the social equity page and click on our resources, and then click on our SEED grant program for information. Thank you all, and have a good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.